All right. Department of Defense Weapons System Acquisition Reform Product Support Assessment. Chapter 5 Recommended process enablers for implementing the product support and business manual. The product support business manual provides the vision and of framework to achieve the evolved, improved sustainment and better integrated industrial base help establish the partnerships needed to the best capability of government and commercial industries to build the framework of the vibrant product support infrastructure for the supply chain operational strategy. Explains to provide tools to manage the government and commercial industry will work together through the sharing of the common language, metrics, and measuring tools. Chapter 5 expounds the strategies outlined in Chapter 3 and 4. It provides operational recommendations that make these strategies tangible. Despite the fact that the vast majority of lifecycle costs, at least 70%, are expended to systems that have been acquired and sustained related inputs, has historically been represented during the weapon system investment decision deliberations. Today's weapon system are fielded with an environment of significant growing and uncertainty. We face a complexity involving the threatening Secretary of Defense that had made a cell to be a base balance of conventional modernization programs with capabilities needed for today's complex training sustainment strategies that maintain elements of the operational OS and ONS cost continuing to evolve, giving the uncertainties is extremely difficult to forecast the ONS cost with confidence. Exuberating these problems, the department has now established the process for systematically tracking and assessing ONS costs. Despite the fact that the vast majority of the life cycle costs, at least 70% expended after the system had been acquired with the same related inputs, have historically been underrepresented during the weapon system investment decision deliberations. Changing the face of the Department of Defense and transporting weapon system life cycle and product support can be described like a puzzle, which each piece must be fit in not just one with the survive several adjoining pieces in the final puzzle solution. The big picture is not apparent until all the pieces are in place. The study team found a deficiency in the major corner piece of this puzzle: sustainment governance. This consistently cohesive oversight of the across the management policies process the division in making for the sustainment to ensure the sustainment information is critical and component with the weapon system acquisition through for the life cycle, governing and managing weapon system life cycle, and further challenged by inconsistent collection by use of the sustainment metrics of primary importance in today's economic climate is better collection and measures of management of the ONS costs, which of the rising at microscopic level without ability to make consistent fair cost prevention. Comparison across the programs with the same services across the service of the Department of Defense will never achieve the ability to identify the manage, mitigate, measure the cost of history, historical difficulty selecting and executing appropriate analytical tools to deriving the meaning of those cost performance metrics that facilitate the product support strategy. The decision final piece of the puzzle is critical, needed to ensure the Department of Defense acquisition logistic workforce has requisite skills for executing outcome-based support, driving the need for the more integrated human capital strategy. Governance recommended. Recommendation: improve weapon system governance so sustainable factors are better considerably earlier constantly across the weapon system life cycle. Every programming decision made during the entire life cycle of the Department of Defense should be made within the knowledge of how that decision will impact the life cycle sustainment of that will objectively sounds relatively easy to accomplish. The decades of the experience show that is actually extremely difficult. There are two primary reasons for the difficulty: that or perceived relative importance of the long-term costs, in other words, current cost impacts drives the decision, and the tomorrow leaders will be left to address the lack of the valid and measurable sustainable metrics, especially cost projections. Hysterically fueled and forget syndrome has dominated the acquisition decision making. The Department of Defense planning and the program budgeting execution system is not effectively focused on the material reading, the reliability, maintainable life cycle cost of the weapon system. The dismissal of these key factors has a long-lasting consequence for the systems for the operating of 30 to 50 years before their retirement. Yet this has generally occurred since the structure for the defensive plans, future for defensive plans are limited to relatively near to the term budget consideration. Project managers are more focused on immediate issues on occurring on their watch. Further, they are limited to formal consideration points of the sustainable information data and acquisition decision-making process forums. Association information involved. There are no formal structures to update this information for an easy decision making or historical comparison during the milestone reviews. Relevant insertion points from material development, decision, initial operational testing, evaluation currently lack the relevant data necessary to understand the and other sustainment factors associated with the supporting of the weapon system long term. Improving sustainment governance to make the information more visible and decision-making more and through the weapon system lifecycle will result for the improved product support through outcomes, understanding and managing toward the consistency set of matrix, particularly ownership, the cost of delivery drivers will also decision-makers to make the better informed investment and decision across the portfolio of weapon systems. So how can a lifecycle sustainment consideration viable factor in the acquisition decision making during the design, development, and production of the Department of Defense weapon system? The following recommendation keys could task help the address challenge. 1. The strength, the guidance, and policies of the sustainment factors are the sufficient addressed and governing key lifecycle management decision points, MDD or milestones, etc. Issue the Department of Defense policy to require the components to conduct an independent logistic assessment prior to the milestone B, C, and FNRP and provided by the ILA to the DUSD, LMNR, and 30 days before the milestone decision. Create a post-IOC reviewed by the Department under the Secretary of Defense, LNMR, respective services responsible for the life cycle management. 1. Strength, guidance, and policy so the sustainment factors sufficiently addressed in the government at the key life cycle management decision points, MDD and MDD milestones. The DOD stakeholder had investment significant the DOD stakeholders have invested significantly resources updating guidance and policy as related to the acquisition process life cycle system. Sustainment, specifically Office of Secretary of Defense, has been published 2 sustainable-centric memorandums. An updated instruction, the updated defensive acquisition guidebook described in what and how and being able to meet the instruction and requirements of the guidance to be able to develop for the assistant analyst and the alternative error. The technological development phase and portfolio system acquisition. Moreover, the services have demonstrated progress with the same governance. For example, the Department of the Navy issued Institute of the ACAT gate reviews for more than acquisition milestone decision point and beyond. This included the ROSE reviews in the post-IOC sustainment gate to the access probabilities and program health and measured initial system performance and sustainment gates and raise and resolve operation commands sustainment and issued for the terms of readiness. The KPP and KSA metric performance, lifecycle sustainment plan, execution, logistics, interoperable investment opportunities, supportable effectiveness, ownership, and cost affordable to date. A new tool is recommended for the use of throughout the weapon system life cycle to make much like a spiritual chart. Spiritual chart depicts the program founding status. The sustainment chart ensures the sustainment information relative to the strategy metrics and costs addressing the milestone reviews. The sustainment chart is intended to keep the decision-making tool and readily identify the weapon system product support business to model and capture its operating and support costs, operational metrics, and data. The sustainment chart, metric operational ONS, and sustaining charts. Even though the sustainment policy and guidelines are readily available, the services and stakeholders by varying degrees of work to address the following their acquisition policies and policy guidance are still not uniform executed or enforced, given the lack of the readily available. That there's not a surprising each life of the cycle management decision point needs a specific, accurate, timely information with a significant breadth fidelity to adhere to the current policy guidance. Lacking specifically data analysis is left to interpretation according to the recommendation. Key task list: 1. Determining the information currently required in the guidance, identifying the actual information needed for the sound governance at each critical life of the cycle management decision points, recommending the minimum of the set data actions required for the decision makers to make the sound life cycle product and the support decisions. Issue the Department of Defense policies to require the components to conduct an independent logistical assessment prior to the milestone B and C. The FRP and provided with the ILA, report the DOU and LMR in 30 days before the milestone decision. Service is routinely conducted by the independent logistics agency. Services can routinely conduct an independent logistic assessment as standards throughout the not standardized business processes. The integrated logistic assessment, a combination of formation of the services, recognizes the important to their life cycle product support. Governance is also important for the Office of Secretary of Defense. Product support or governance. This recommendation builds the services efforts recognizing the value that potentially added to the Department of Defense wide product support decision making. The process is requiring services to conducted with the integrated logistic assessment based on the existing integrated logistic assessment templates on at least of the major defensive acquisition programs. MDAP, with other programs, strongly encourage more of the recommendation and enhances the existing integrated independent logistic assessment templates requiring the critical information identified with the previous tasks, including all integrated logistic assessments as minimum Office Secretary of Defense requirement. Finally, it requires service to provide the Department the DUSD, LNMR that are completed with the integrated logistic assessment sufficient time before each listed decision point to ensure that the DOU, DS, and LNMR can provide an informed, relevant recommendation for the milestone assessment. Other key decision reviews, reciprocity, Office of the Department of Defensive use of these under Secretary of Defense. Can the Department under Secretary of Defense to provide with the integrated logistics must be practice summary back to the service to improve the Department of Defense sustainment planning. Create a post-IOC review lead to the DUSD, LNMR, the respective services responsible for life cycle management. The blurred there is a blurred delineation between the acquisition statement and the weapon system life cycle. The post-IOC review can represent the key transition point between the acquisition and sustainment phase of the weapon system life cycle. The post-IOC review is the distinction entry and existing requirements marks the passage of the system funded with the supported by the acquisition process. The dollars responsible for the service of the life cycle committed during the post-IOC review. The system program is formally reviewed along with the list known as the product support issues corresponding to the solution recommendations. This review also provided the first post-IOC opportunity for the Office of Secretary of Defense to commit resources to allocation of the service life cycle command and address outstanding sustainment issues addressed to be issued in post-IOC review should include statement of the weapon system performance against its operational sustainment requirements, particularly sustainment of the key performance parameters and key system attributes, performance against the service unique metrics such as contractual or performance-based agreements, requirements for results of service independent logistics assessments, business case analysis, recommended system improvements to support the improved capabilities, sustainment and service metrics, plan and evolution of sustainment strategy. A downstream POSIC reviews and can improve corporate accountability for long-term operational performance and also inform the planning of the decision for the key-making supports, such as available reliability lifecycle costs for the future program. A formal post-IOC review is warranted to both the assets operational performance and put active pressure in existing acquisition renews to be more disciplined in the attention to the downstream consequences. Metrics. Developing an overarching Department of Sustainable Metrics and Management Strategy for the life cycle of the product to support the strengthening formal data, the collection analysis capabilities while providing with the insight and learning to support life cycle planning and operational management. The recommendation to strengthen operational of the overarching formal metric strategies of all MDAP laid out in July 31st, 2008, the Acquisition Technology Logistics Memorandum called Implementation of Life Cycle Management Framework encourages the service to apply for the all non-DAP in turn with the weapon system lifecycle management. It is made more effective the efficiency and installation, how metrics are used in the strategic management weapon system lifecycle to accomplish this. The metrics recommendation will align metrics collection usage with the desired sustaining outcomes, clarify the use of the matrix, including specific IT tools that rely on the metrics to aid the management decision-making process. Standard metric collection and use of the process, automated business rules and filters process data information for the management decision. This recommended in the task are critical because the relevant metrics have been used and consistent with a managed weapon system. The system cost performance over the weapon system life. This has had directly led to unpredictable cost performance variances at each stage of the life cycle, leading to the program cancellation difficulty managing a weapon system over the life cycle, and is demonstrated by the reconstruction of the Joint Air Source, or if it's a standoff missile, or due to the system reliability issues subsequent to the cost growth. Cancellation extending range cancellation extended range munitions due to the repeated reliability failures. These examples represent billions of potential wasted tax dollars, and had they been spent on the acquisition process for the foster with more life cycle management insight and control, that the money should have been spent toward greater capabilities, better financing, stewardship. This recommends and ensure that the present and the future platforms are managed and ensure the availability of the warfighter to respond to managed tax dollars. Recommended key tasks. The Department of Defense should execute the 4 tasks implementing the recommendation. Using the existing Department of Defense sustainment restriction required by the JCIDs and Office of the Secretary of Defense policy, and establishing measuring progress toward the hitting of the realistic operational performance requirements throughout the weapon system life cycle. Using the metrics and the trigger to conduct the further investigation and analysis, and the drivers of those metrics influencing the reliability, availability, and maintenance. Reviewing the ownership cost of the KCAN to be the full operational cost of operational OSN investigation, potential legacy program reporting for the sustainment metrics. Using the Department of Defense sustaining metrics joint required by the joint component is JICD's development. Office Secretary prior to the establishment measuring the programs toward hitting the realistic operational performance requirements throughout the weapon cycle. 1. The task builds an ongoing effort for the service of the Office of Secretary of Defense, capitalizing the investment already made in the service-oriented architecture development of defense acquisition management information retrieval system, the service automated information system, Army information management, the dashboard, Navy system matrix reporting tool, SMART, and AF as each automated integration system reports the Defensive Acquisition Management Information Retrieval estimates against established goals for the MDAP. Using required matrix, available material reliability, ownership and cost, and currently optional metric of the mean downtime available is required by the KPP and for the MDAP, along with the material reliability ownership cost of the KSA, including the MDT with the KPP and KSSA provided with a complete sustainment picture for the program. Therefore, making the mean downtime as a required metric submission within the Defensive Acquisition Management Information Retrieval is encouraged using existing metrics, avoiding confusing initialization and avoiding additional top-tiered important but lower-tiered metric across the Department of Defense service still already usually needed with the service program office. Instead, enables consistent with the map information channels for the service to communicate with the Office of the Secretary of Defense. Other service components are internally. These tasks also require automated quantitative data collection reporting initiative already under the Office of Secretary of Defense, including creation of automated information channels that capture the underlying process that lead the quantitative data collected by the system that requires creation and process of program manager, combat commanders, Office of Secretary of Defense to establish the degree of life cycle sustainment goals that are updated throughout the weapon system life cycle. Finally, it requires establishment quantitative and qualitative baselines for all IOC MDAPs using the lower tiered metrics that are derived with reliable, available maintainability. Use of metrics as triggers to conduct with the further investigation and analysis of the driver that use the metrics influence reliability, availability, maintainability. In supporting the reliability, availability, maintainability initiatives outlined in July 21st, 2008, U.S. Secretary of Defense, the memorandum of the reliability, available, maintainability process congressional language in the 2009 Weapons System Acquisition Reform Act, the Department should be strengthened as it emphasizes around addressing the reliability, availability, maintainability earlier throughout the system lifecycle using metrics and the triggers institutions for the best practice of using data to control the process of the lifecycle product. Government, not all the strategic of the tactical, it ties the government's recommendation presented earlier and allowing the automated comparison for the actual performance and against the agreed reliability, availability, maintainability, cost, goals. This includes both actual performance of the field system and predicted performance throughout the modeling and simulation of the system, developing helps the ongoing governance with the service. The task opportunities, the task one metrics through these enterprise the dashboard that help the driven decision makers on the good choices. Moreover, that requires the creation of the standard operation procedures for the intermediate initial analysis that should be completed whenever the agreed on the trigger points are reached. Revise the ownership of the cost key system and attribute or to be the full OSS cost. The review of the cost system attributed to be operational support and operation and support. The bills with the sustainment key performance parameters and mandatory. The cost support and attribute the ownership cost on the joint GFSAF Chairman Joint Capabilities Integration Development System or JACE kids. Manual dictated with the July 31st, 2009. The document specifies the warranship with the comprised with the service elements developed with the cost analysis improvement group no cost of the assessment program evaluation CAPE. This cost should be further accounting with the cost of all the direct labor associated with the system should be considered with the clarifying the definition of fully burdened cost of the fuel to indicate the managing of the fuel supply lines, the risk of the distribution of those supplies, and as discussed in the JKIDs, selectively applied to engineering efficiency with the cost performance parameters. Finally, these standards estimated weapon size with a lifespan of 20 to 25 years should be reevaluated to determine if the longer estimated life spans were warranted. This change with the Office of Secretary of Defense Service with more of the comprehensive picture of the actual cost per operating supporting system with all improved decision making across the system lifecycle when evaluating alternatives during the development. For investing in the potential legacy program reporting the sustainment metrics, the DMIR should be reviewed primarily to the domestic metrics of data of the field system as it currently with the warehouse at the acts of MDAP sustainment report. In addition, with the legacy program, all field houses under the inactive programs function of the DMIMR. The service has implemented the collection reporting the sustainment metrics on the selected programs in accordance with the 31st of July 2008 Memorandum implementing of the Lifecycle Management Framework and Sustainment December 11, 2008 ARA LMNR recommendation memorandum implementation of lifecycle sustainment operation outcome metrics and data reporting as directed by the July 2008 Acquisition Technology and Logistics LCM legacy program has been ceased for the SARDAES reported should be reviewed with the same metrics applying with the metrics reporting should across the entire weapon system lifecycle will be enable the true sustainment management field system have access to the existing matrix database that which can be leveraged by supply of sustainment metrics data. Implementation of the task risk and mix of the investigation analysts and understood existing capabilities, the legacy programs to collect the report of the data when changes are feasible from the financial execution standpoint, developing a plan to fund the run out of the data collection analysis process, the candidate system, the execution of that plan. ONS costs. Recommendation of life cycle affordability core business for all community stakeholders and system acquisitions. Making the life cycle affordability research allocation of the core process enables the several key transformations, namely, move beyond the traditional approaching with the estimating cost focuses on what the department can afford over the life cycle to be achieved, the required abilities, shift the Department of Defense current focus on the acquisition element of the life cycle of the cost, limited emphasis on the ONS cost of the individual programs, and increase the emphasis of the ownership of the cost, so the entire enterprise provide the flexibility in achieving holistic, affordable system operational effectiveness with the prescribing specific initiatives and provided basis. This recommendation is result in transformation as two fundamental issues with the how the Department of Defense manages ONS. The DOD does not take an integrated view with the ONS costs of the portfolio's tactical air warfare or heavy lift and across the enterprise with the other either service. Department of Defense tends to look at the O&S cost for the individual vertical weapon system perspective, not across all weapons, to see over total obligation authority impact. Does not making a long-term review with the budgeting of the major supply chain elements, horizontal perspective, including the maintenance, transportation, space, procurements, supply chain budgets, and only consideration portion of the cost incurred with all the programs within the Department of Defense system and the inventory, many which operate for more than 20 years planned during the acquisition. Transformation of a critical sensitive O&S cost compromises 60-75% of the life cycle, which, growing at a system operating longer than planned, consider the Department of Defense spends at least $132 billion on product support costs across the Department of Defense enterprise each year, or even a small operational saw O&S cost improvement, the result of the significant change of the department board, despite the 5 base realignment closure rounds and numerous initiatives such as defensive management review decisions, a reduction of the total ownership of the RTOC, and the Department of Defense has historically experienced over 2% of the O&M growth and 1% manpower cost growth over and above inflation each year. The recommendation addresses the this growing gap. Recommendation keys. The major task implementation recommended bill by the reference to the Department of Defense Congress initiatives, including Weapons System Acquisition Reform Act of 2009. These tasks are establishing an OS affordability account requirement, including linking the OS budget to the readiness, developing an implemented process procedure with the key communities, engaging them in an affordable process, increasing the visibility of the ONS and their drivers across the supply chain. Establishing an OS requirement, including the OS budgets and readiness. Readiness of affordability must be joint derived product of the support and strategy across weapon system cycles across the capability portfolios. A key element in establishing OSS costs.